Hi, Kartik here from Vertical Road Properties, and today we're talking about how one property becomes four, becomes five, becomes seven, becomes nine, and so on. And by the end of this presentation, you should have an idea exactly how you can grow a property portfolio just like a pro. So, after a few well spent minutes with me today, you should be able to understand the power of debt. Now, if you're thinking, what the hell am I talking about? Debt is bad, then stick around. This is the exact presentation for you. You should be able to understand the power of leverage. Debt and leverage are totally interconnected. You'll be able to understand the mechanics of how to grow a portfolio, and I'm hoping you'll feel confident and a bit more excited about growing your own. So first up, we need to talk about leverage, and the professionals understand leverage and how to use it to their advantage. And we need leverage in our lives to successfully build that property portfolio. Look, success leaves clues, and let's look at what the successful people have done and model them. And these are the four areas that have a proven track record for success in building that portfolio. So first up, we've got pounds. As you would expect, some people think leveraging pounds is the only thing, but it's absolutely not. We're talking about price, so I'll explain exactly what that means later on, but essentially we're talking about leveraging the purchase price of the property. We're talking about people, and we're talking about practices. So I'll briefly mention what exactly I mean by these two words at the end, but the focus of this presentation is going to be on pounds and the price. So let's talk about what we mean by leveraging pounds. So before going any further, we need to drop in the concept so things really make sense later on of good debt and bad debt. So you may or may not be familiar with this concept, so let's clarify it anyway. So what really helped me to get my head around this is think of a bad debt as a debt that you have to pay regardless of whether you use it or not. So for example, a loan on a car finance, you pay for that at the end of the month, whether you use the car or not. The mortgage on the property, on the house that you're living in, whether you use that house that month or not, you still have to pay for it, and it's coming out of your pocket. So what's a good debt? Well, a good debt is a debt that you own. However, someone else is paying that for you. So an example is you have a mortgage on a property that someone else is living in, and they're paying you rent, and out of that rent money, you are paying the debt, the mortgage off. So they are in effect paying your debt. That's an example of a good debt. So I said to a client the other day, imagine I gave you a credit card and I said to you, use this credit card as much as you like, and somebody else is going to pay for it at the end of the month. How many of those credit cards would you actually want? And she said 20, and I said to her, surely you want 40. So we want as much good debt as possible, right? Just keep that in mind. Now that brings me on to the difference between an investment mortgage and a residential mortgage. That should be pretty clear by now, but you know, a lot of people invest in property and they don't really understand this concept yet. And I did this when I bought my first property. So long story short, my dad passed away a few years ago now, and from the life insurance payout, as a family, we wanted to invest that in a property for his legacy and so on. And we ended up investing all of that money in one property. We felt absolutely secure. We felt good about it. Like, we put the money to good use. But in hindsight, was that the best decision that we made? What else could we have done? What could we have done better with that capital? And you'll see shortly what I mean by that. So the other thing to mention here is I get asked, should I buy with a cash or should I buy with a mortgage? Cash purchases are advantageous. They give you more bargaining power. You can move quickly and so on. But in building a portfolio, which one is better? And we're going to look at that as well. So let's look at an example of buying a property without leverage. So the house on the left is the house that we're buying, and it's £100,000, and we have no mortgage against that. So we buy the house and we put all of our money, all of our £100,000 starting capital into buying the one house, no mortgage. We wait for the market to move up by 10%. And then that property is now worth £110,000. We still don't have a mortgage against that property, so we have made £10,000. So this example works a little bit like how the stock market works. So you put your investment into the stock grows, and then you have a profit on that investment. Well, what about if we buy with leverage? So when we buy with leverage, the bank is going to lend us 75% of the value of the property. So in a similar example, we keep the figures the same. With that £100,000, we can now buy 4 houses. We put a deposit of 25,000 each. The bank lends us 75,000, and all of a sudden we have 4 properties that are worth 100,000, but now we have a £75,000 mortgage against these properties. Now, I know there's other costs involved in buying property: stamp duty, broker's fees, solicitor's fees, mortgage setup fees, etc., etc. But just for simplicity, we're just going to leave all of those out for now and just look at the bare bones of these figures here. So at this point, if you're thinking, oh, I don't have 100 grand to invest, look, don't worry. Just understand the concept, understand how it works, and you can apply that to whatever capital you do have. And okay, it might take you a little bit longer to get to a big portfolio than in this example, but in my opinion, it's better to be on a longer property journey than it is to be on no journey at all. So the market moves up by 10%, exactly as it did in the previous example. And now we have 4 houses that are now worth £110,000 each. So in total, we have now achieved £40,000 in equity growth. And look, for me, this is why, hands down, the property market beats the stock market as an investment asset class. Look, there's no other market where you can go to a bank and get 75% and you put in 25% and grow on that investment. You can't go to the bank and say, oh, I've got the hot tip for the new Tesla. Can you give me 75%? I'll put 25% and we'll make some money together. It's not going to happen. So why do the banks lend on property? Well, because it's secure. They know this works, and if you don't pay the loan back, then they can take your asset. So they are covered. They want you not to pay the loan back so they can take the asset. You know, banks might be a number of things, but stupid definitely isn't one of them. And they make billions and billions of pounds doing this. They know what to lend on. So the beautiful thing here is equity release. So we refinance each of those 4 houses, which are now worth 110,000, and we get 75% of the value of that house, providing we have kept the rents moving up with the market. So we are now able to take £82,000 out of each house. With that 82,000, we now need to pay the previous mortgage off, which was 75. So that leaves us with £7,500 of equity growth per property, a total of £30,000 back out, which is tax-free. This is equity release, not income. We do not have to pay any tax on this, on the equity that we've released. So now at this point, we can pay it back to ourselves, or we can buy another property. So now we've got 5 houses for the same starting capital. So I know I know which one I'd rather have. Would I have one house going up in value, or do I want 5 houses going up in value? So this is how leveraging pounds works. So what do I mean by leveraging price? Well, at the time of recording this is November 2022, there's lots of negative media going on at the moment about the property market. And the way I see things, look, we can let the media control what we think, or we can let the market control what we think. And right now, I see this as a time for opportunity. You can make offers on property right now, and you can get a discount if you know what you're doing. You know, the property market in the beginning of 2022 was booming. It was so difficult to buy a property with a discount and get a good price. Why would any seller sell their property for discount in a property market that's booming? It doesn't make sense, right? So we have a much better chance of getting a discount now, but that can change depending on how the market goes, as I've just mentioned. So let's look at buying a property with leverage and a discount. So what we can do here, so let's say we could get a 20% discount on these properties. So now instead of paying £100,000 for these properties, we're paying 80,000. So that means we put a deposit of only 20,000. The banks lend us 60. That's our 75%, 25% ratio. And now we can buy 5 houses because each is 20. It's 20 grand each. So now the market moves up 10%, exactly the same as the previous example. Each of these 5 houses are now worth 110,000. Again, we've put the rents up. We refinance these properties at 82,500. We pay off the mortgage of 60,000, and now we've ended up with an equity growth of £22,500 per property. 22.5 times 5 is 112.5. That's £112,500 of equity release that we have gained from our initial £100,000 capital. Now, are you actually smiling right now? Look, this is amazing. The market went up 10% and we were able to take out all of our money out. So I guess the bad news is you would have to wait here for the market to go up 10%. That could happen in a year. It could take 2, 3, 5 years. Last year, the market went up by 10% in a year, but that was because we had this crazy boom. But can you think of any other asset class where you can invest and get this kind of results? And all of this because we leveraged. So next up, let's just talk about people. So what I mean by that is the professionals, they know that in order to keep moving in their portfolio growth, they need to leverage people who have time, people who have expertise, a network, and knowledge. So you don't want to get stuck or held back simply because you don't have one of these, because you can leverage them. So we can get any skill or any resource that we don't have in order to grow. For example, if you're thinking of investing in an area where you don't know, you don't live there, you don't know the area, well, you'd leverage someone who does know the area and who can do all of the groundwork, boots on the ground to do the viewings, etc., etc. At this point, I guess it's worth mentioning here that any successful property venture needs 3 elements. We need time, we need money, and we need expertise. This is also known as the joint venture triangle. So expertise could mean local area knowledge, access to vendors to get good deals. So in property jargon, a vendor is a seller of a property, a network, a trades team to be able to carry out a refurb in certain areas, and so on. Of course, money is self-explanatory, time self-explanatory. It could be a combination. You might be a combination. Some people have money and time. Some people have time and expertise, but no money. So have a think about where you might be in this triangle, and think about leveraging the elements of this triangle that you are lacking in. And finally, let's just talk about practices. So what I mean by this is we're not the only ones building a property portfolio. That road has already been paved and has already been walked down. So we don't need to rebuild the whole road and walk down a completely new road. We can look at what's done, and we can walk down that road. We can learn from other people's experiences. We can educate ourselves on what people did, what they did well, what they didn't do well. And just remember, knowledge is not power. It's knowledge plus taking the action that gives you the real power. And lastly, just for me to say, look, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I hope you've got a little bit of an idea as to how property professionals build up their property empire. I hope you feel empowered. I hope you feel emboldened, and I hope you feel excited about building your own property portfolio. So I've been Kartik. This is Vertical Road Properties, and I'll see you on the other side.